Well, some Wednesday additional thoughts time for Mind Melter Friday, which was Honor Killed the Samurai and Donuts. I'm still a little under the weather. It's been an interesting week. My wife and son have been sick, and they've been fighting that for a couple days now. I've been right on the edge. I got the flu shot back in October just because my work was offering it. And I think that saved my ass this week because I've been a little sick, but not a lot sick like they've been. But either way, going to be a low energy video again, kind of like the samples video for Donuts was. I'll start with Caw. Unfortunately, because of everything that's been going on the last couple of days, I don't have any notes. I usually try and take notes. I haven't had any notes. Caw, Honor Killed the Samurai. I mean, first of all, everyone who said, Bob, you're going to love this album, you're going to love the lyrics, absolutely correct. Love the lyrics. Love the tone. Love everything about it. And one of the things I've been wrestling with over the last day or two is, if I'm in love with it so much, and I think it's so great, why is it not more popular than it is? And how come I don't find myself going back to it as often as Donuts? And I think Caw, or not necessarily Caw, but this album, because I haven't heard his other stuff. I watched an interview with him, where the Red Bull Academy or something like that, and I watched a bulk of that, not all of it. It's fairly long. I think I watched about an hour of it or so. It was really interesting listening to him talk and explain where he came from and his kind of both his experiences as a child and the environment that he was in, but also both how he slowly developed over time and got to where he is now in terms of creating music. And just what a neat guy. What a neat guy. I really appreciate just kind of his mindset, how he approaches things and being patient and letting things be what they are and all of that stuff. And it just puts me smack dab face to face with the age old debate, right? Something that's good versus something that's popular. And by all accounts, in my opinion, Caw should be very well known. Honor Killed the Samurai should be an album that everybody has heard. If you've heard To Pimp a Butterfly, if you've heard, God, I'm blanking right now, of course. Anyway, it deserves to be up there in terms of what it's doing. But like even he said, this isn't like, in that interview, he's talking about how he doesn't do live shows and people want him to, and he understands that. But he said this isn't like public music. This isn't music that's meant for other people. It's really for him. It's his own version of therapy and his own way of just kind of working through things. And that's great. And I think it's created some incredible music. I mean, I'm looking at the tracks. Like, every single song has a heart. Every song has a heart. The track list is fantastic. That Cold and Lonely, Mourn at Night, Money, Destined, Illicit Feel. Every single track is fucking fantastic. And I love the aesthetic that goes into this album with the samurai and the code of honor, and opening track is Conflicted, and just those concepts kind of come into play, being executed throughout the album. The sound of the album, the style, the tone, it's really dialed back. And it is just a reflection. It is a moment of thinking about things and pondering things. And the way he writes these lyrics and makes these points and these comparisons. I mean, Money was just pure fire. That song is fucking amazing. He says in that track, it would take me an hour to rant and rave and explain and get to the point of what he says in that song, which is 3 minutes long. It's incredible. What do you need all these cars for? And all this other shit. I don't remember all the lyrics, verbatim off the top of my head. So it's a killer album. So, and again, I mentioned this. How come nobody's heard it? Why does Caw have so few listeners? How come this doesn't have hundreds of millions of listens? And it just goes back to that thing of, is it necessarily entertaining? Do people put it on and want to listen to it to, in the idea of listening to music, because I find myself in the same situation where I have a lot of respect for this album. I love the lyricism. I love everything about it, but I'm not really drawn to it very often. It reminds me a lot of the dark ambient albums that I like to listen to that are just fucking dark. And I love them. They're incredible. Lustmord is like the fucking godfather of dark ambient. Incredible sound. But I don't put it on that often because of what it is. It's like after a long day of work and, I'm tired and, hang out with the family, I just want to sit back and relax. Like, no, we don't want to listen to this really dark, gothic, odd, grindy sound. I just want to shed some weight off the shoulders and kick back a little bit. And it's the same thing with Honor Killed the Samurai, in the sense of if you've had a difficult day or week or month or whatever, you're not really going to go to this. Well, maybe you've had a difficult week. Maybe you can kind of exhale via the lyrics that are present on this album. But it is interesting how music just it does that. Certain albums and certain songs and certain sounds, they all have their place, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who can put this album on at any time, top to bottom, love the whole thing. And I feel like when I'm in the right mood, absolutely top to bottom, love the whole thing, because I probably spun it, I'll say 5-6 times over the course of this week. Easy to do. Pretty short album. All the tracks feed into each other. But I also felt like when I would just throw it on, just kind of play it, I felt like I was missing something, because this album is so well written and there are so many things going on lyrically that if you throw it on for a passive experience, I feel like you don't have the same experience as if you do the one that you would if you sit and listen to it. And you really just let your mind soak into what's going on. And I think really that's the split right there. Do you want to have music on that you can just have on, or do you want to have music on that you're going to pay attention to? So I don't really have any criticisms of the album. I think it's really what it's doing very well. And it's doing it so well that maybe it becomes a fault of its own device, in the sense that it's so detailed. The fucking lyrics are incredible. The lyrics are incredible. But yeah, sometimes you just don't want to hear it. Just like when I have to go on Twitter and check messages, and I see Twitter right now is just a goddamn dumpster fire. It's always been a shithole, but now it's like radioactive, burning, oil spill shithole. There's so many stupid things on there right now. It's like, God, I don't want to see any of this. When other times, maybe if I'm in a lighter mood and I don't care as much, whatever, it's funny. But anyway, so there's Honor Killed the Samurai. Loved it. There's the bottom line. There's what really matters. Loved it. I really like it. I guess there's a couple other albums. I forget one of them, but one is called Descendants of Cain. Might look into that one. But yeah, I like Ka. I would like to do more Ka. We'll see where it goes, but definitely really, really enjoyed Honor Killed the Samurai. And in terms of Mind Melter Friday, I loved how it did break my brain at the end, especially when I got to that final track and I was trying to figure out if it was a raid or what the hell was going on. Honestly, now I'm remembering, I haven't even gone through the comments yet to see if anybody's helped me out with that last track. But let's move on to Donuts. Donuts, totally different experience. Incredible album. I still have a hard time with the beginning. And I've been playing Donuts where I leave Spotify on repeat, just put the album on. I don't really pay attention. I let it just bounce around and get through. Those first, 10 minutes or so, everything, it just feels, there's this jarring quality to it. This I can't get comfortable kind of feeling. And that concept in itself makes me really wonder, what was he building in there? And I think what's so fascinating about Donuts from a conceptual point of view is we weren't inside his mind. There are certain things, little tidbits online and stuff like that explain certain songs, or this is what this meant. And, that's probably true. I'm not trying to refute certain things. The one about Johnny do it. You know, he changed the sample to tell his brother to do it to get into production and stuff like that. Okay. But there's so much interpretation that this album allows, and it's just fascinating. It's so fascinating because it's really hard to remove the idea of Dilla and where he was in his life, physically and in the hospital and sick, and I mean all that shit, right? Like that is here. It's in here, and you can't like remove that. It's almost, I don't want to call it a stain because that's a negative concept. But it's baked into it. You can't consider this album without that, unless you're just listening to it having no idea, you know, who made it and when and all this other stuff. But I feel like most people know. And it's neat how it starts out like that. I feel like it's just the ache. It's the uncomfortableness of the idea of maybe dying or maybe being in the hospital or whatever. But then it settles out. It settles out. And to me, the back half, it kind of smooths out. It finds a groove that I find a little more comfortable. And what's really neat to me is when it gets to the end and then it wraps back around to the beginning, then I'm totally fine. And that concept is really, it makes, I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, you can't tell, but it makes me fucking have goosebumps. The idea of, no, when I come back around again, these things that feel bumpy and jarring and uncomfortable to me musically in the album, in the early portion, when I'm first dropping in, now I'm comfortable with it. And it's almost like an idea of death, maybe, letting someone go, all those elements. You know, it just, when you first approach it, it's not comfortable. It's you know, you just have a sense of, right? But when you allow yourself to kind of push through that first barrier, that wall, and then settle into it, and then you just start to realize, you know what? It is what it is. And life will keep going. And I'll die and we'll die and people will be sad, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going. It really is just a marvelous album. And for those of you who did not see, on Monday I posted a video just reacting to the different samples in the album, how they got chopped up and spliced. I watched videos about, you know, different people talking about J Dilla, and I learned a little bit more about the beat machines because, what is it, the MPC, and there's all these different models. I'm not an expert on them at all. I just have a general concept. And the main concept that really stuck out to me that I learned over this week listening to this album was, you know, you've got these punch pads where you hit the sample that you've cut and load it into this button. So that's how they play these beats. That's how they produce these beats. And one of the videos was talking about how he doesn't use the quantization tool, so it doesn't snap the beats in to make it perfectly timed. He does it manually, and it gives it more of that analog feel rather than, you know, everything just in line and stuff. And that whole concept was cool because I've had a very basic understanding of what producing means in terms of sampling. Like, yeah, you take a piece of sound and then you put it back in, but I'd never understood it to the scale of playing that machine like its own instrument. And that gave me a lot more respect for production. I've already had a huge amount of respect for the people like Dilla who can listen to a song, take segments, move them around, and create a new beat from that. I can't process that. I really can't. But I feel like Donuts was the production version for me, in my experience into hip-hop, like Mad Villainy was and MF Doom for rhyming structure and schemes, and seeing those videos where the words were highlighted different colors so I could actually see what the fuck was going on. And I've talked about this before with rap in terms of rapping and that ability, and you know, I equate it to the guitar player in rock. But with rock, you can watch the guy play the guitar and go, wow, that's incredible. You cannot have any idea what he's doing. Same thing with the drummer. These musicians can just be doing all this stuff. You know, they're drumming away and they're doing this with the riffs and fingers and stuff. Always got to put that meedly in there. Meedly. And you can be just the average Joe, no musical experience of any kind, and go, wow, that's incredible. I'm watching this person do this thing. With rapping, you can't see that. You can maybe hear it, but really it just sounds like somebody talking fast. With production, you really can't see it. You can't see it. You can't. You could watch somebody on the MPC do the thing, and you would just be like, what the fuck's even happening? There was one clip. It was Ninth Wonder, I think is his name, and he's talking about what Dilla did. And I had to watch that clip 3 times before I finally understood what the fuck he was talking about, what it meant. Watching these guys as Don't Cry, as his version, the sample breaks down and he starts fucking with it. Watching these guys air guitar their MPCs because they're punching the buttons with them, like Jay Dilla was doing. So, you know, with Donuts, I'm glad it took a year and a half basically to get here to listen to this one. I wonder if maybe I should have listened to other things prior to this, but honestly, it doesn't really matter because it feels appropriate to be understanding this now. I wish I would have understood it more earlier, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, you learn things. Whether you learn them earlier or later, the point is that you learn it. And so now I have an understanding more so what was actually going on with production, and I can take the concept and I'll go forward with it, obviously, but I think back to other songs and I go, okay, this is why people were freaking out right here on this song, on this transition, on this beat flip. Like, this is why it's such a big deal, because they're doing it manually. And then, you know, everything about that, it gave me a sense of relief just thinking about Jay Dilla, because going into the album, I had so much focus on his situation and his life and where he was. And, you know, that's a very heavy side of it. And so understanding the mechanical side of creating these beats, chopping up samples, moving things around, I feel like even though he was going through all of that, I feel like he was still having fun. And that helps. That helps a lot. You know, it just... I don't want to sound cliche because I feel like I hear this all the time, but it really does make Donuts like one of the perfect albums out there. And it's just because it just happens to have all of these elements that go into it that no other album will really have. I'm getting like all stirred up because of it. And there's no real reason other than it's cool. You know, it's every now and then things in the universe, they all come together just right. And you go, wow, cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's it. Not much else to say to that. Donuts has been so heavily analyzed and talked about. I feel like if I try to throw my own additional layer thoughts to it, it would just kind of fall flat. Cool album, man. Really cool album. Fun experience listening to it. And I definitely will go back to it. I have been listening to, prior to that, I had listened to DJ Shadow's Introducing. Great album there. Kenny Beats' Louie. If you haven't heard that, go check that one out. It's really fucking good. Lots of horns in that one. It's beautiful. Great album. And finish is really strong, in my opinion. And I guess that's it. Good times, man. Mind Melter Friday. Finally fucking got to it. After talking about it for like 6 months, I think. Finally got to it. And of course, this Friday, well, so it's going to get a little funky with Thanksgiving, but this Friday will be the final Friday of November. And you guys can finally move on and not have to deal with me doing this.